and her children.
You know, that's going to leave scars for a long time, if not forever.
It's just something that shouldn't have happened.
The ultimate tragedy is that a woman who was a terrific mother and, by all accounts, a very nice, wonderful person was killed and certainly didn't deserve anything like this.
There was nothing that could stop them from achieving their dreams.
They were ambitious, and they both wanted more.
They played well off of each other.
Until a seemingly random crime tears their world apart.
He smashes out the window, reaches in to grab the purse.
He shot her 4 times.
Detectives will do whatever they can to catch the killer.
It was so brazen. It was the day after Christmas.
No stone is going to be unturned.
But nothing can prepare them for the shocking truth.
Ruthless and heartless. It was horrible.
I was in total disbelief.
Is there a serial killer on the loose? Or is this the ultimate act of betrayal?
You felt so bad for this person, and now it turns out that person's guilty.
You're capable of a lot if you would do this.
December 26, 2007, 9 p.m. It's the day after Christmas in Detroit, Michigan. But there's little joy in this struggling city of shuttered factories and empty homes.
As the auto industry went, so did the city. So things have not been as prosperous as they once were.
Crime is high here. Everybody knows that lives here.
The police department was trying to get a handle on crime. Unfortunately, the city did not have the money.
Over on the city's east side, police get an all-too-familiar call.
The police dispatcher received a 911 call regarding a shooting on East Jefferson.
First responders race to the scene, the parking lot of a local drugstore. Upon arrival, a frantic man flags them down.
My wife, she's been shot.
He was in a very emotional state, sobbing and crying.
What happened to her?
She's been shot. Please help her.
They see a van, and when they run up to the vehicle, they see a female that's crouched over, bloody, and clutching her purse, like someone had tried to rob her.
The passenger window was shattered, and the wife appeared to have been shot multiple times.
As EMTs rush to the woman's aid, the responding officers pull her distraught husband aside.
Did you see who did this?
No, I was still inside. He heard gunshots. He ran out and discovered that his wife was slumped over in the passenger side.
He ran back into the store and talked to the manager in the store, told him to get some help.
I just can't believe it.
The victim's husband, David Cobb, was no stranger to violent crimes. He just had never been on this side of them.
Sergeant David Cobb was a 6-year veteran of the Detroit Police Department.
When it comes down to a police officer's family getting hurt, all police officers, not only in Detroit, but everywhere, take it personal.
Come on, we got you.
All my love scattered everywhere.
When he looked at me, I just melted.
Dreams so sweet turned into a nightmare.
I didn't suspect that he was a straight-out killer demon. I knew I was in trouble.
I've been going crazy.
That's a hell of a price to pay. Just for one damn man.
Rose Bennett was a shy woman, known for her heart of gold.
She was definitely a reserved, kind of quiet person. Not boisterous or loud or the life of the party.
She had that kind of kind personality, and she wanted to help people.
Always an overachiever, Rose propelled her passion for service into a rewarding career.
It was important for her to push herself as far as you can go.
Hey, lady. She got her bachelor's degree in social work, and then she started working for the Detroit Medical Center. She was a social worker there. She worked in the area with the mothers and babies before they left the hospital, and after they would need a lot of things or assistance, and she went that extra mile for them.
When you're leaving the hospital, make sure you got your car seat, because they're not going to release you without your car seats. So make sure you get that before you go into the hospital.
I don't think she could see herself doing anything else because she loved to help people. So she was right where she wanted to be.
While Rose loved building relationships with clients, her personal life was stretched a bit thin.
I don't think she was out searching for nobody. If that happened to happen somewhere down the road, she wasn't against it, but it wasn't her main focus.
Her job was very important to her, and that came first.
It's nice seeing y'all. You're welcome.
Though Rose's career was thriving, there were limits to what she could achieve.
The social work program, you needed your master's degree in order to get a certain level, to get a certain pay. So she decided to just go and get her master's degree.
In 1999, while attending classes at Wayne State University, Rose met someone who would finally take her mind off work.
Rose would often run into David Cobb, who was working for the Wayne State Campus Police.
You reconsider that date yet?
I told you, think about it.
She told me about him, asked me what did I think. I said, well, it's up to you. So at first, it didn't become much of anything, but he was a very persistent person.
He was quite struck by her. She was a very beautiful woman, and he continued to woo her.
How about we just start with some coffee?
You insist, okay?
He seemed like a laid-back guy, would smile and laugh. He was comforting. He was caring. He was funny.
It was clear Rose had met her match in David.
He liked helping people. He actually loved being a police officer.
She was ambitious, and he was ambitious. He wanted to move up, up, up as far as he could go.
After just 8 months together, David and Rose could see that they had something special.
He said, Rucker, I think I met the one.
What she liked about him was what he liked about her. He saw her as someone that wanted something out of life, and that would do whatever it took to get there. And so they figured, why not? Let's get married, let's work on our careers, and have this life that we both always wanted. And that's what they did.
After the wedding, Rose finished her master's.
We were proud of her doing that. We all were very proud of her.
David was moving up too.
In 2001, he joined the Detroit Police Force.
David was promoted to sergeant within 2 or 3 years after starting with the Detroit Police Department. A lot of the supervisors recognized his ability to lead and to put together budgets and his ability to work well with numbers.
Like Rose, David was willing to work twice as hard to get where he wanted.
He did start law school. It was a stepping stone to move up through the ranks in the Detroit Police Department.
Their careers flourished so well that by 2006, the couple had saved up enough to buy their dream home in the Detroit suburbs.
It was an upper middle class professional type of neighborhood.
It was not too far from the river. Beautiful. Better homes and garden like house.
Can't believe this is ours. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
This is just the beginning, baby.
It was sky's the limit. Do whatever you want to do. It was like this power couple trying to make some moves.
But just as they seemed on the verge of achieving everything they ever wanted, fate had other plans for this dynamic duo.
At a little after 9 p.m. the day after Christmas, Rose was shot outside of a drugstore.
She was clinging to life, and they raced her to the hospital.
After taking a brief statement from David at the scene, detectives allow him to follow.
Officer, take him to the hospital, please.
I don't think most people wouldn't be in a position to really answer accurately given what had just happened.
Besides, what just happened appears obvious to police.
Someone had come up, seen the victim alone in the van, decided to smash the window, take her purse, but then wound up shooting her multiple times.
There have been robberies around that area during that time. A lot of carjackings.
But detectives would soon discover this case is far from typical.
The degree of difficulty in this type crime is high.
It took 2.5 years to get justice for Rose.
It's hard to process. You say to yourself, is this really happening?
Scattered everywhere.
When he looked at me, I just melted.
Dreams so sweet turned into a nightmare.
I didn't suspect that he was a straight out killer demon. I knew I was in trouble.
I've been going crazy.
That's a hell of a price to pay. Just for one damn man.
By the end of 2007, the future was looking brighter than ever for Rose and David Cobb.
They both worked hard to accomplish their goals and wasn't afraid to go after what they wanted.
They had a beautiful new home, 2 thriving careers, and David was working towards his law degree.
But on the evening of December 26th, after a shooting outside an East Detroit drugstore, Rose and David's hopes and dreams hang in the balance.
Rose had been rushed to the hospital where David waited for news of her condition, along with several of his coworkers from the Detroit Police Department.
A number of people from his precinct had got the news, and we all went to the hospital.
While David and his fellow officers stand vigil outside the ER, detectives search the couple's minivan.
They felt it appeared to be a smash and grab type robbery. The window was shattered, and she appeared to be holding on to her purse.
They didn't get the purse. Maybe somebody came by and spooked the shooter and made him run or something like that.
However, while the crime's motive appears obvious, finding out who did it will be a challenge.
There wasn't a whole lot of evidence at this crime scene for the police to go on.
Often stores have video cameras that observe their doors or the parking lot, but in this particular instance, there was no video available.
The only physical evidence detectives have are several .40 caliber shell casings they find on the ground outside the minivan.
You have 4 shell casings, and, you can run those in ballistics.
Speaking with the store manager, detectives are able to confirm David's earlier account.
David was inside the store, and he heard shots on the outside. In fact, everybody heard shots on the outside. He ran out. Then he runs inside and tells the manager and everybody, call the police. My wife has been shot.
So you didn't actually see what happened?
No, sir, I didn't.
Luckily, someone else had.
They were able to talk to a witness that actually heard this person demand the lady's purse.
She must have fought him. Next thing I heard was some gunshots.
Can you describe the shooter?
The perpetrator was described as wearing a ski mask.
All the witness could say was that the shooter was tall and slightly built.
That'll be all. Thank you.
With all leads at the scene exhausted, detectives head to the hospital.
We were there for many hours, kind of not saying too much, just kind of feeling out what's going on, if you can help your friend in any way.
Unfortunately, no one could prepare David for the update he was about to receive.
The doctor came and they wanted to speak with the husband, and that's when they gave him the news.
I'm very sorry. There was nothing we could...
No.
There are no words. You just kind of like, man, is this really happening?
Rose's family has the same reaction.
His mother called and said that something had happened. It had been a robbery. You say to yourself, this can't be for real. And if you do go to sleep, you wake up and you're like, did I dream that? Did this really happen?
After receiving the devastating news, detectives ask David down to the station for a formal statement.
Sorry, we have to do this now.
It's okay. I understand.
They brought him in, and the interview was a normal interview, asking questions on why were you there? Where were you going? What did you see?
We were going to the movies.
Why did you stop at the drugstore?
I was going to pick up some candy.
How are you, man?
Sergeant Cobb said he was inside, and he heard some shots. When he came out, he saw that the van had been shot up, at least the window.
Rose!
And then he saw his wife bloody.
Rose! Oh, my God! Ah!
Needing to explore all possibilities, detectives inquire about the health of David and Rose's marriage.
How was your relationship?
Things were good.
I'm sorry. I had to ask.
It's okay. I know the routine.
They typically look at the spouse of the decedent when someone is murdered. It's almost like a protocol. You want to check them out to take him off the list.
He answered all the questions, thoroughly, and they were satisfied with what he had to say.
With David seemingly ruled out, detectives can focus on finding the man behind the mask.
I just want to get whoever did this.
Don't worry. We'll find him.
Police shootings, everybody tries harder to find who did this because they're like family to us.
They were doing everything that they could and even extra to bring this person to justice.
Detectives can't help but wonder, could David's line of work and his wife's murder be related?
One of the first things you'd think of is, God, I wonder if this is somebody that he busted at some time.
Maybe someone that just got out of prison or something like that that held a grudge against him.
All my love scattered everywhere.
When he looked at me, I just melted.
Dreams so sweet turned into a nightmare.
I didn't suspect that he was a straight-out killer demon. I knew I was in trouble.
I've been going crazy.
That's a hell of a price to pay. Just for one damn man.
While Detroit's homicide rate has declined since 2007, the Motor City is still believed to be one of the most dangerous cities in America. With nearly 14,000 violent crimes committed annually, Detroit is considered more dangerous than similar cities of its size, including Baltimore, New Orleans, and Chicago. On the morning of December 27, 2007, the entire city of Detroit woke to the news that 47-year-old Rose Cobb had been gunned down in a drugstore parking lot on the east side of town.
On the crime beat, you'll get notices about murders, homicides, different high-profile crimes, and we had gotten a notice that there was a murder. You know, there's 300-something murders in a typical year in Detroit, and you can't cover them all. You'd just be literally writing a new murder story every day.
However, Rose was no ordinary victim.
Obviously, it made the news when it was discovered that Rosie was the wife of a Detroit police sergeant.
I basically got on camera, let them know that we're asking the public if anybody was there that night, that saw anything that could help shed some light on who did this to her.
While evidence at the scene suggests the murder was the result of a botched robbery, detectives entertain another possibility.
As a police officer, you always have concerns for your family. You wonder if possibly some arrest you made or something that you did in the street caused someone to have ill will against you and to retaliate against a family member.
He works at the Eastern District, which was the most violent in the city. They deal with a lot of powerful dope crews. Some of these drug dealers in Detroit are just unbelievably violent. So let's say it is a cop who arrested one of their crew or put a crimp in their money-making opportunity. A lot of these drug dealers in Detroit would have no qualms about killing his wife or her husband or children.
They checked to see, but they didn't find anything like that at all.
With David's line of duty apparently a dead end, detectives turn their attention to Rose.
The police talked with the victim's family to determine if possibly there was something in her background that would have caused someone to highlight her for this type of crime.
The family's answer is a resounding no.
One thing I can say, my auntie, she was loving, she was caring. Anything you asked, if she had it, it was yours. And she was an honest person.
Rose's family tells detectives she expected the same from her husband, too.
There's a level of trust you have to have in a relationship. And David, he betrayed that trust.
What do you mean?
He was always working late nights and really guarded with his phone.
She actually confided in her sister. Things were starting to fall apart. She thought he was having an affair.
It just seems possibly there's more going on than meets the eye.
According to Rose's family, her suspicion grew until, shortly before her death, she made a momentous decision.
She was going to leave him. She was tired and she was fed up and she had had enough.
He was nothing like the picture of his marriage that David had painted for detectives.
The downfall of their marriage, that kind of gave it a different eye on things.
The next morning, detectives called David in for another round of questioning.
You told us things were good between you and Rose.
Yeah?
So why are people telling us the opposite? That she was thinking about divorce?
Her family, right? Man, they be blowing things out of proportion.
Mr. Cobb comes in again for another talk with investigators, and in that interview, he states that even though they had a rough patch, everything was fine and they were getting along well together.
She was upset, but there was no truth to it.
And you never cheated on her?
God, no.
Detectives want to believe their fellow officer, but must exhaust all options. They subpoena David's phone records, hoping to shed some light on the cheating. David's phone records, hoping to shed some light on the cheating allegations.
They continued digging to see if possibly there was some involvement with another person, possibly a girlfriend, that could have led to the attack on his wife.
And what they find next will truly raise a red flag.
There is one phone number that appears on Mr. Cobb's records often.
He was calling this number at all hours of the night.
Maybe Rose did have reason to worry. Maybe David was having an affair.
Detectives are investigating the brutal murder of Rose Cobb, the wife of fellow police officer Sergeant David Cobb. But according to Rose's family, the couple's relationship was far from perfect.
According to Rose's family, her marriage had fallen apart because she suspected he was having an affair.
As detectives look into the infidelity angle, they uncover a pattern of suspicious behavior.
Detectives find a number on Mr. Cobb's phone records that it appears he had been calling numerous times, and that number is traced back to a lady named Shirley.
Detectives waste no time tracking down 37-year-old Shirley Black and bring her in for questioning.
Shirley possibly has the motive to eliminate the wife.
If he was cheating, but then decided to try and make it work with his wife, Shirley could easily be a scorned lover.
That's what you have to find out. What ideas does she have as far as continuing the relationship?
But when pressed by detectives, Shirley flatly denies having a romantic relationship with David.
In the interview, she admits to knowing David, but she explains that they are old friends, that there's nothing more to it.
Are you sure? It seems like you guys were talking on the phone quite often.
What are you trying to say?
I'm just trying to figure out who killed his wife.
Well, I didn't have anything to do with it. And neither did David.
For the moment, detectives have no way of proving otherwise.
Police do not have anything that confirms an affair between David and Shirley.
And they certainly didn't have anything that directly tied David or Shirley to Rose's murder.
Still, detectives aren't ready to give up on their hunch.
They didn't just take Shirley at her word. They decided to dig into her background and see if she had any history of violent crimes.
What they find raises eyebrows.
She has a son that has been arrested before.
At just 20 years old, Shirley's son, Marzell Black, already has a lengthy rap sheet.
That right there throws a big flag.
The wheels are starting to turn in the detectives' minds, and they are wondering if Shirley's son possibly shot Rose.
Shirley could have hired Marzell to take care of it for her, or David could have asked him to do it.
Later that day, detectives bring in Marzell Black for questioning.
We're investigating the murder of a woman named Rose Cobb.
What's that got to do with me?
Your mom knows her husband.
So?
He denies knowing David or Rose, and he further states that he would not know who his mom's friends are or who she might be involved with.
I sure don't know anything about any murder either.
Detectives believe Marzell knows more than he's letting on. But one thing is certain. He isn't their shooter.
Marzell, he's not a physical match for the description that the witnesses gave.
Free to go.
Detectives have no choice but to release Marzell, though they aren't crossing him off their suspect list just yet.
Detectives had to look into the possibility that Marzell might have been the middleman.
This guy's on the street. He knows people that are violent. He's in the dope game. So he was a perfect candidate if you're going to ask somebody, hey, do you know someone who killed my wife?
Detectives spend the next several days hitting the streets, questioning Marzell's known associates. However, those roads seem to lead to a dead end.
There are times as a detective when you have a strong hunch on something that you are trying to solve, but you just cannot quite find the evidence you need to put it together, and it can be extremely frustrating.
The frustration continues to mount when detectives reach out to David.
At this point, David has retained an attorney, and upon advice of counsel, David said he does not want to make any further statements to the police.
With David refusing to talk and no evidence against Marzell, the case grows cold.
A couple months passed, and then the story kind of laid low for a while. You didn't hear much about it.
Then, on the morning of April 20th, almost 4 months after Rose Cobb's murder, police are called to the Detroit suburb of Shelby Township for a seemingly unrelated case.
They were looking to arrest a man named Vincent Smothers, who was wanted for the murder of a Detroit drug dealer.
Officers don't want to take any chances, so they bring plenty of backup, and they surround the home where Vincent is staying.
The SWAT team came out and he was arrested without incident.
Though just as the SWAT team making the arrest thinks their job is done, new information will lead to another shocking twist.
As the officers escorted Smothers' wife, she said something that took them completely by surprise.
April 20th, 2008. While police in Detroit placed 27-year-old Vincent Smothers under arrest for the murder of a local drug dealer, his wife let something slip that may hold the key to solving another crime.
While the police were putting cuffs on her husband, she asked if his arrest had anything to do with that cop's wife.
This is a pretty jaw-dropping statement, and police are taken aback.
It had been 4 months since the murder of Rose Cobb, the wife of Sergeant David Cobb, and that crime still hadn't been solved.
Detectives working Rose's case are immediately called to the station.
I need you to explain to me what you meant back there.
About the cop's wife?
When police bring Vincent Smothers' wife in, she states that Vincent had confided in her that he had actually killed the cop's wife.
With the wife short on details, detectives move on to Vincent. To their surprise, he's more than happy to talk.
According to him, he says he was kind of relieved once he got arrested.
He said he could not sleep because he kept visualizing Rosie hollering, oh my God, Jesus, Jesus.
What happened at the drugstore? I was hired to kill the woman that would be in the minivan. When you didn't kill her? Yeah.
He not only admits that he killed Rose, but he further admits that he kills people for money.
Okay. And why were you intend to kill her? Because that's what you specified? Okay. So you're doing a contract murder, right? For money? Yeah.
Detectives are kind of surprised that he's as open as he is.
Who you haven't killed? She.
He's talking about killing these people as calmly as you talk about what you had for dinner yesterday.
Detectives are convinced he's telling them the truth, too.
Smothers gives details about each murder. He knows the caliber of gun that was used, many intricate details that only the killer would know.
He was just giving detail after detail. He just opened up and, I think they said, wow, we hit the jackpot here.
Vincent explains to detectives that the whole thing started when a drug dealer approached him about a job.
Her arrangements were made with Marcel Black. He tell me, I know this guy who said he wanted his wife killed. And you set it all up, it'd be easy. Okay, then what else? He said the guy wanted to meet so he can go over the plan. So you have met? Right.
Detectives finally get the break they need when Vincent stated that he met with the guy that had offered Vincent a portion of his wife's insurance money if he would kill her.
Who hired him to kill her? Hey, the guy.
They thought all along that there was something going on between David Cobb and Marcel's mother, Shirley. This seemed to put it all together for them.
Yeah. Okay, did David Cobb ever discuss money with you for the murder of his wife? Yeah. Yeah. I would be getting paid $5,000 by David Cobb to Marcel, but Marcel was getting paid separate from the $5,000 I was getting paid. So, $10,000 back to Marcel, right, and $5,000 cash for you. Right, and that would be paid after. And you never said and that would be paid after. And you never paid.
She had a $200,000 life insurance policy, and he was going to give him 10 grand.
She cheat on you or something? You ain't got to worry about that, bruh. You want the 10 grand or not?
Vincent was hesitant to take on that task because he only killed people that he felt deserved it.
Up until he had shot Rose, he killed people that were drug dealers, people in the game, as we would say.
Vincent decided to do it because it was an easy job and the money was good.
Vincent says on the night of the murder, he was waiting in the drugstore when the cops pulled into the parking lot.
Smothers said David had planned to enter the store, and that would have been a hint for Vincent to go ahead and carry out the mission.
Cobb walks past, kind of gives a nod. Okay, thumbs up, this thing's a go. Vincent said he grabbed a tire iron out of his car, and he's got his gun.
He approached the van. He broke the passenger window with the tire iron.
Give me the purse! Give me the purse now!
He wanted to grab the purse, make it look like a robbery.
Give me the purse!
Things didn't quite go as planned, though.
Rose screamed. She grabbed her purse and leaned in the opposite direction.
She was nervous. It was like she was almost turned around and peeked away from me. She was screaming. She was afraid. Just screaming.
So he figured, I better just do this now.
Oh, my God!
And he opened fire.
From any further delay, I shot her.
She wouldn't give that purse up, so he left without taking anything.
Despite the plan going awry, Vincent got away clean. But his conscience was another matter.
Vincent told police he immediately regretted what he had done.
My stomach was not happy what happened.
It bothered him that he had killed somebody. It wasn't a drug dealer. It didn't harm people. That was predominantly a good, decent person. And in his heart, she didn't deserve what he did to her.
Detectives find Vincent's story credible and arrest him on the spot.
Based on Vincent Smothers' confession, police get an arrest warrant to bring David Cobb in. David opens the door, surrenders peacefully, and allows himself to be arrested.
For the couple's family and friends, David's arrest isn't just shocking, it's devastating.
It's like, oh my God, he actually did this.
I was in total disbelief. Because of my love for my buddy, I couldn't even fathom him being a suspect.
Once in custody, David invokes his right to remain silent.
He was a law student at the time and had been a police officer for a number of years. He knew it's probably best not to make a statement, and certainly not to make a statement without counsel present.
Marzell Black, the alleged middleman for the murder, also refuses to talk.
Police charge him for solicitation of murder.
As far as Marzell's mom, Shirley, there was not enough concrete evidence to show she was involved, so she was not arrested.
However, just when it looks as though Rose's killers have finally been brought to justice, prosecutors have to do the unthinkable.
The only thing they had against David was the word of a man who just confessed to multiple murders.
They didn't have any witnesses, and they didn't have any weapon.
Less than 48 hours after his arrest, prosecutors have no choice but to release David Cobb.
They didn't think they had a strong enough case against him.
They didn't have enough to charge Marzell either, so he was released too.
That didn't set well with a lot of the cops.
I was like, how could he get away with it?
That's what's up.
The fact that David Cobb was a police officer and would hire someone to carry out a hit really intrigues me. Nothing made me madder than a police officer that would commit a crime. To me personally, I went all these years without doing anything criminal. And I always felt like if you want to be a criminal, go out and be a criminal. But don't tarnish what I'm doing or put a stain on my badge because you want to do something else.
Less than 48 hours after his arrest, David Cobb walks out of the Wayne County Jail a free man.
Prosecutors didn't feel like there was enough evidence to convict him of murder.
They had to let him go. And I get it. They didn't have enough. And it's technicalities like that if they had kept him locked up and pursued it, that would have gotten him off.
David's release doesn't mean police and prosecutors think he's innocent, though.
They really believed he did it. There was an active investigation against him, even though he was released.
As Detroit police work overtime in hopes of making an airtight case against David, the department suspends the 6-year veteran without pay.
Innocent until proven guilty and all that, but a cop who's being actively investigated for killing his wife, you don't want him wearing the badge.
David lays low for the next several months, while detectives dig deeper into the case, hoping to convince prosecutors to press charges.
Detectives did confirm that after Rose's death, David had filed a claim for her life insurance.
However, a pending life insurance claim is not enough to convict him of murder.
That's what you do when someone dies. Yeah, it might look bad, but people collect life insurance all the time.
With no hard evidence to speak of, detectives decide to pull one last card.
They brought Marzell back in and tried to press him to talk.
I told you, I'm not talking without a lawyer.
Sure, we just wanted to talk to you. Before we talk to your mom.
My mom?
Detectives suspected Marzell's mom was having an affair with David.
She doesn't know about the plot to kill Rose?
David came to me. She didn't have anything to do with it.
Black flipped on David Cobb and cooperated.
How you doing?
I'm good, you?
Sergeant Cobb knew Marzell, knew what he was into.
Got that number you asked for.
And he felt that he could help him out because of his criminal record. And he knew that Marzell had people behind him that were kind of treacherous. And I believe that's why he asked.
That's what's up.
Stand up.
Marzell's confession is the breakthrough detectives need.
My sources told me that they were about to rearrest David Cobb and charge him with the murder this time.
I was wondering if he was going to run and leave because he knew they was on him.
However, nothing could prepare Rose's family or detectives for what happened next. On September 26, 2008, 9 months after the murder, 2 men out for a bike ride in a suburban Detroit park make a shocking discovery.
Oh, my God.
Call 911.
Officers arrive on the scene, and almost immediately, one of the officers recognizes the body as David Cobb.
They performed CPR, the medics came, they rushed him to the hospital, and he ultimately died in the hospital.
Given the pending charges, police are quick to close the case on David Cobb's death.
Officers process the scene, and they pretty much feel it's a suicide that has taken place.
2 days later, a member of David's family receives what appears to be his suicide notes.
One addressed to the family and one addressed to Rose. And in those letters, David just expresses his love for Rose. He doesn't confess to anything. He doesn't talk about having regrets or anything.
Even to the end, he professed that he didn't do it.
For David's family, it's a tragic end that leaves more questions than answers.
They believe that he killed himself because he was hounded by police regarding this crime.
He really wouldn't admit that he was responsible, even knowing everything that had came out.
But to police and Rose's family, his suicide is as good as an admission of guilt.
He knew it was a matter of time before he would be caught and implicated.
I think he should have had his day in court. There was no satisfaction in him being hung.
We got robbed of seeing him being tried and prosecuted. I would have liked to see him rot in jail for the rest of his life.
However, Vincent Smothers will most likely spend the rest of his life in prison after pleading guilty to the murder of Rose Cobb and 7 others.
Vincent was sentenced to 50 to 100 years in prison. At his sentencing, he said, there's no atonement for what I've done. I've taken people away from their families and loved ones.
The way I see it, he felt more remorse and compassion than her own husband did. And I hate him for killing her, but I thank him for coming forward.
If he hadn't spoke up, we may have never really found out what really actually happened to her.
Marzelle Black, whose cooperation was ultimately rendered moot by David's suicide, receives a lesser sentence.
Marzelle got 15 to 40 years in prison for solicitation of murder.
While the surviving members of the conspiracy will be in prison for a long time, Rose's loved ones still struggle to understand the motive behind this senseless crime.
Vincent's mother didn't know my aunt from Adam until David set this in motion. He conspired, he plotted, he planned, he put it together, and he used people to do his dirty work.
What did he actually get out of having my sister murdered? Nothing.
Instead, all the disgraced police sergeant did was rob the world of a good woman who worked hard to help those in need.
She was loved, she was hardworking, she was kind, and she should still be here with us.
She was everything that anybody would want to be. You took a good, loving person from us, and there's not a day that goes by that we don't miss her.
This hard-working single mom thought she'd found true love.
They connected so quickly. You took care of her kids. It was going to be an amazing future.
Instead, it ended in a horrific crime.
Hello, I need to talk now. She was on the floor, bound by the hands and legs.
She had a plastic bag around her head.
I think the person says.
But how did it happen?
She went out to a club.
You could be in danger just because you were out having fun. She was a beautiful girl. She got a lot of attention.
Did someone follow her home?
Or was the trouble already there?
There are some guys who are very possessive.
This was something that he kept a secret. You don't know what insecurities are lying beneath the surface.
That could have taken him over the edge.
The alchemy of ink. The rise and fall of the H to H38 Empire. A novel based on the true account of Albert Talton. Prologue, The Specimen Vault. In the heart of Washington, D.C., there is a room that does not exist on any public map of the city. It is a place where history is measured in cotton, linen, and the scent of chemical ink. They call it the Specimen Vault. Inside, the walls are lined with floor-to-ceiling drawers, each containing the shattered dreams of thousands of men who thought they could outsmart the United States Treasury. Kelly Harris, a forensic expert with eyes sharpened by decades of looking at things most people ignore, pulled open a drawer Inside lay a $100 bill. To the untrained eye, it was Benjamin Franklin staring back with his usual stoic wisdom. But to Kelly, it was a ghost. This one was different. She whispered to the empty room. In the long history of counterfeiting, a crime as old as the nation itself, most forgeries were the work of master engravers or desperate men with offset presses. But this bill, part of the notorious H to H38 strain, was the product of a revolution. It wasn't born in a high-tech lab or a foreign basement. It was born in a townhouse in Lawndale, California, birthed by a man who saw the American dream not as a goal to be earned, but as a code to be hacked. This is the story of Albert Talton, a man who turned hairspray into gold and newsprint into an empire, only to watch it all burn under the relentless gaze of the law. Chapter 1: The Engineer of Inglewood. Albert Talton was never a man of small ambitions. Growing up in Inglewood, California, the air was often thick with the scent of jet fuel from wax and the underlying tension of a neighborhood were making it usually meant surviving until Friday. Inglewood was a place of contrast, streamlined streets shadowed by the reputation of Inglewood, always up to no good. Albert was the outlier. While the other kids were looking for trouble on the corners, Albert was in his garage, taking things apart. He had the hands of a surgeon and the mind of an electrical engineer. He didn't just play music. He wanted to understand why the bass from a Bose speaker felt like a physical heartbeat. One afternoon, his friend David Goldberg watched in awe as Albert disassembled a high-end Bose radio. "What are you doing?" "Al, that's a $300 system," Goldberg said, leaning against the workbench. Albert didn't look up. His soldering iron hissed against a circuit board. "They're charging for the name. Dave, I want to see the math. I want to know how they get that much air to move in such a small box." Within a week, Albert hadn't just fixed the speaker, he had replicated its internal acoustic waveguide using scrap materials and his own calculations. He built a car stereo system from scratch that hit harder and cleaner than anything sold in a showroom. It was his first taste of the copycat high, the realization that with enough patience, the world's most expensive secrets were just puzzles waiting to be solved. But the legitimate path was slow. College was a grind of theories and debt. Albert dropped out, his brilliance untethered from a degree. He began doing dirt, the local slang for the hustle. He forged checks, a crime that landed him in a cell in the 90s. He committed bank fraud in 2001. By 2004, Albert Talton was 41 years old, a two-time felon working at a body shop. He was a man with a Ferrari brain stuck in a Hyundai life. Then came the spark. His boss at the body shop walked into the office one morning holding a $100 bill between two fingers as if it were a dead moth. "Look at this piece of junk," the boss grumbled. "Some kid tried to pass it at the register. Fake as a $3 bill. Albert took the note. He felt the texture. He looked at the blurred lines of the seal. He didn't see a crime. He saw a challenge. "I could do this better," Albert said, his voice flat and certain. The boss laughed. "Sure you could, Al. Get back to the fenders." But Albert didn't go back to the fenders. In that moment, the engineer of Inglewood died, and the alchemist was born. Chapter 2, The Kitchen Laboratory. The startup cost of the greatest digital counterfeiting operation in American history was less than $200. Albert bought a Hewlett-Packard all-in-one printer scanner copier from a big box store. He set it up in his kitchen, the fluorescent light humming overhead. He laid a genuine $100 bill on the glass. The scanner light crawled across the paper like a blue laser. The first few dozen attempts were failures. The colors were saturated. The paper felt like what it was, cheap office supply stock. U.S. currency isn't paper, Albert muttered to himself late into the night. It's cloth. 75% cotton, 25% linen. You can't print cloth on a laser jet. He began his research. He studied the security features, the watermark of Franklin, the security thread that glowed pink under UV light, the color-shifting ink that turned from green to black when tilted. Most counterfeiters gave up here. They tried to buy expensive paper from overseas or steal government-grade ink. Albert took a different route. He went to the supermarket. He discovered that certain types of recycled newsprint had a high fiber content that, when treated, mimicked the snap of a real bill. But the ink was the problem. Inkjet ink sat on top of the paper, while the treasury's intaglio printing pressed the ink into it. Albert's breakthrough was the glue and fold. He realized that if he printed the front of the bill on one ultra-thin sheet of paper and the back on another, he could hide things in the middle. He began sketching the watermark by hand on the inside of the paper before gluing them together. He used a thin strip of silver polyester for the security thread. When the two halves were bonded, the security features were embedded inside the bill, just like the real thing. When held up to the light, the ghost of Franklin appeared. But there was one final hurdle: the pen. Every cashier in America used a counterfeit detection pen. The iodine-based ink reacted with the starch in wood-based paper, turning black. On genuine cotton-based currency, it stayed amber. Albert spent weeks experimenting with chemical coatings. He tried waxes, oils, and industrial sealants. Then he found the secret in the beauty aisle: Aquanet hairspray. Specifically, the high-hold version. When sprayed in a fine mist over the newsprint, the hairspray created a microscopic barrier that prevented the iodine from reacting with the wood fibers. David Goldberg came over for a game of chess one afternoon and found the oven on. "Why do you have money in the oven, Al?" Goldberg asked, staring through the glass door at stacks of Benjamins. Drying the glue, Albert said, not looking up from the chessboard, "I'm at $60 an hour for help. Dave, Ewan." Goldberg looked at the money, then at his friend's cold, calculating eyes. He didn't see a criminal. He saw a man who had finally mastered the math. Chapter 3, The Pyramid of Greed. An empire is only as strong as its borders. Albert knew he couldn't spend the money himself. That was how the less smart people got caught. He needed a distribution network. He needed a wall between himself and the point of sale. He turned to his oldest friends, Troy Stroud a man who knew the rhythm of the streets, became his lead broker. Paul McCory, his best friend since they were 17, joined the ranks. Albert's system was a master class in criminal logistics. He sold his product for $15 per $100 bill. Stroud and McCory would then sell it to second-tier brokers for $30. Those brokers would sell it to gang members or desperate street hustlers for $50. By the time the bill reached a register at a Target or a Walmart, the person holding it had no idea who Albert Talton was. The gangs were the perfect end users. In the neighborhoods of Los Angeles, ratting was a death sentence. The secrecy was built into the culture, one note at a time. Were the instructions: buy a pack of gum, a soda, something cheap. Get $95 in real change. Move to the next store. Don't get greedy. By 2006, the H to H38 bills were spreading like a virus. The serial numbers H stood for the position on the plate, and H38 for the plate number became the unofficial brand of the Lawndale Mint. Albert didn't bother changing them. He was arrogant. He believed his process was so perfect that the numbers didn't matter. The money started flowing in. Real money. Albert moved out of the neighborhood and into a comfortable townhouse in Lawndale. He didn't just buy a car, he bought a fleet. 2 Mercedes-Benzes, a Range Rover for Stroud, and the crown jewel, a $100,000 Aston Martin Vantage. He bought a house for his girlfriend in Woodland Hills. He had 7 flat-screen TVs. He was living the life of a tech CEO, all funded by a kitchen printer and a can of hairspray. But while Albert was enjoying the spoils, a storm was brewing in an office less than 20 miles away. Chapter 4. The Hounds at the Door. Special Agent Matthew Mayo of the U.S. Secret Service was a man of patterns. In the Los Angeles field office, the maps on the wall were covered in red pins. Each pin represented a seizure of an H to H38 bill. It started as a trickle, Mayo told his partner, Manuel Puentes. 20 notes a week in 2005. Now, it's a flood. We're seeing hundreds of thousands a month. It's hitting every state in the Union. It's in London. It's in Tokyo. The Secret Service was the oldest federal law enforcement agency in the country. Founded in 1865 for one specific purpose: to stop the counterfeiters who were destroying the post-Civil War economy. Mayo felt that history on his shoulders. The quality is too high for a casual printer, Mayo said, examining a bill under a microscope. Look at the dots. It's an inkjet, but the registration is perfect. This guy isn't just a criminal. He's an artist. The break came on January 14th, 2008. A young man with no criminal record tried to buy a stack of designer shirts at an H&M in Los Angeles using 10 of the H2 H3 800s. The cashier, a college kid who had just been trained on security features, noticed that all the bills had the same serial number. He didn't say a word. He just hit the silent alarm. When Mayo arrived at the precinct to interrogate the suspect, he found a man shaking with fear. "I'm not a gangster," the man pleaded. I needed the money. A guy at a car wash sold them to me." Mayo leaned in, his voice a low, rhythmic tether. "The people you bought these from don't care about you. They're going to let you take the fall for a federal felony. Or you can tell me where the car wash is." The suspect cracked. He gave up a name, which led to another name, which led to Troy Stroud. The Secret Service began a sneak and peek investigation. They followed Stroud's white Range Rover. They watched him at a Popeyes drive-thru, where Mayo personally intercepted a counterfeit $20 bill passed to the manager. The circle was closing, but they still didn't have the printer. Chapter 5: Trash and Reward Points. The breakthrough didn't come from a high-speed chase or a shootout. It came from a garbage can. For weeks, agents watched a townhouse in Lawndale. They saw a man, Albert Talton, behaving with a level of caution that screamed guilt. He washed his trash cans with bleach. He moved his luxury cars every few hours. One night, under the cover of a moonless sky, Mayo and his team moved in. They grabbed the trash bags from the curb before the truck could arrive. Back at the office, They donned gloves and spread the contents across the table. It was a mosaic of a criminal life. They found scraps of newsprint with Benjamin Franklin eyes staring back. They found empty ink cartridge wrappers, hundreds of them. And then they found the golden ticket, a receipt from a Staples office supply store. He used a Staples reward card. Puentes laughed, holding the receipt. The guy is printing millions of dollars, and he's trying to save $5 on ink. The reward card linked directly to Albert Talton. The agents visited the Staples and pulled the records. Talton was buying ink in industrial quantities. He was also a regular at a place called Paper Mart, where he purchased massive bales of a specific type of recycled newsprint. On April 28, 2008, the Secret Service set up a command center in a hotel room directly across from Talton's townhouse. They had cameras with telephoto lenses trained on his front door. They watched as Paul McCory arrived in a bright orange Mercedes. They watched David Goldberg walk in with a red backpack. They watched Talton load 3 bales of paper into his garage, enough to print $1 million in fake currency. He's filling a big order, Mayo whispered, watching the feed. This is it. Chapter 6, Crash and Burn. May 8th, 2008. The air in Lawndale was heavy with the scent of jasmine and car exhaust. Albert Talton was in his factory. The spare bedroom converted into a high-speed printing floor. 6 printers were humming simultaneously. The floor was covered in stacks of uncut sheets. In the garage, hundreds of $100 bills were hanging on lines like laundry, drying after their Aquanet treatment. We're almost done with the Stroud order, Goldberg said, checking the ink levels. Albert nodded, his mind already on the next move. He was thinking about a new car, maybe a Lamborghini this time. Suddenly, the world exploded. Boom! The front door splintered under the weight of a federal battering ram. Federal agents, get on the ground. Now, Albert froze. He saw the flashbangs illuminating the hallway in strobe light bursts of white. He saw Agent Mayo coming around the corner, his sidearm leveled at Albert's chest. For a second, Albert thought about the Bose speakers. He thought about the math. He thought about how close he had come to hacking the world. He dropped to his knees. "Don't shoot," Albert said, his voice strangely calm. "I'm the one you want." The agents swarmed the house. They found $162,000 in finished notes and $1.4 million in partials. They found the computers, the hairspray, and the H.2H38 files on the hard drive. They had caught him red-handed in the middle of a print run. Chapter 7, The Pride of the Alchemist. In the interrogation room, Albert Talton didn't act like a broken man. He acted like a professor explaining a complex thesis to a group of slow students. It wasn't about the theft, Albert told Agent Mayo, leaning back in his chair, his hands cuffed. It was about the process. I looked at what the government was doing, and I found a cheaper way to do it. Is that a crime? Or is that just good business? It's a crime, Albert, Mayo said. $7 million worth of crime. Albert smiled. It was a sad, arrogant smile. I went to store after store to find that paper. I tested 20 different types of hairspray. I figured out the watermark. I did what the North Koreans couldn't do with a billion-dollar press. And I did it with a $200 HP printer. He was proud. Even as the weight of a 9-year sentence loomed over him, he wanted the Secret Service to know that he was the best they had ever seen. The aftermath was brutal. Because of the economic downturn, Albert's real assets were mostly leveraged. The banks repossessed the houses and the luxury cars. The Aston Martin, the symbol of his genius, was sold at an auction to pay off creditors. In August 2008, Albert Talton pleaded guilty to conspiracy and manufacturing counterfeit notes. At his sentencing, the judge looked at him with a mix of pity and frustration. "Mr. Talton, you are a man of extraordinary intellect," the judge said. "You could have built companies. You could have invented technologies that helped people. Instead, you chose to use your gifts to poison the economy of this country. 9 years in federal prison." Epilogue: The Ghost in the Machine. The H.2H38 bills are still out there. every once in a while. A clerk in a small town in Idaho or a bank teller in Miami will find one. They'll hold it up to the light, see the watermark, feel the snap of the paper, and pass it through. But eventually, they all find their way back to the specimen vault in D.C. Albert Talton is a free man now, or close to it. His TVs are gone. His cars are scrap metal or in someone else's garage. His girlfriend moved on from a prison phone before his release. David Goldberg reflected on his friend. He has the intellect to prosper. It just might not be as quick as doing dirt. I hope he's done. In the end, Albert Talton learned the one lesson his math couldn't solve. You can forge the paper, you can forge the ink, and you can even forge the American dream. But you can never forge the time you lose when the dream finally crashes and burns. The alchemist of Lawndale had turned newsprint into millions, but in the cold light of a prison cell. He realized that the most valuable thing he ever possessed was the one thing he couldn't print more of: his life. The end. The Bone Fields. A Shetland Mystery. Chapter 1. The Salt and the Stone. The wind in Shetland never truly sleeps. It moans through the eaves of the gray stone houses and carries the scent of brine and wet peat across the treeless hills. For Detective Inspector Jimmy Perez, it was the soundtrack to a life defined by the rhythms of the North Sea. Inside his house, the morning was a chaotic blur of domesticity. The kitchen smelled of burnt toast and the lingering dampness of coats that never quite dried. "Who's there? Is that you?" Jimmy called out, his voice thick with the remnants of a restless sleep. His daughter, Cassie, burst into the room like a whirlwind. "Dad! Dad! Dad!" she shouted, her voice a sharp contrast to the low growl of the wind outside. "Have you got everything? You got your gloves and your homework?" And she stopped, eyeing his attire with a look of teenage judgment. "What do you think this is? A fashion choice?" Jimmy looked down at his sweater. It was old, pilled, and smelled faintly of wood smoke. It was Norse Mythology Week. "Cassie, I thought I'd blend in. Right? Don't be cheeky. she retorted, stuffing a notebook into her bag. And don't pretend like you're organized. We're 15 minutes late already. He watched her, a pang of bittersweet pride hitting him. She was growing up too fast, possessing a sharpness that reminded him too much of her mother. Mama, Mama, he called out for his mother-in-law, the silent anchor of their household. But only the hum of the refrigerator answered him. The drive to the Lerwick police station was a familiar path through a landscape of charcoal gray cliffs and churning white water. Inside the station, the air was warmer, but no less busy. Morning, Billy. Jimmy nodded to the desk's sergeant. Morning, Craig. He added to the officer filing paperwork. Anything? Robert Yunson's in the cells. Billy replied without looking up. Drunk in the market square at 3 this morning. Singing at the top of his lungs. Some Norse ballad, apparently. Any news for the Uphelly AA committee? Jimmy asked, leaning against the desk. Billy's face lit up. Uphelly the Great Fire Festival was the heartbeat of the winter. It's Justin. The geyser Jarl thinks it'll be the best festival we've ever had. Oh, and I heard a rumor there's going to be a Lady Gaga squad this year. Jimmy chuckled. You know anything about that? Billy leaned in conspiratorially. Well, you see, I do. But then, if I told you about it, I'd have to kill you. Kicks off as usual at 9:45. Your squad marches along the esplanade to the ferry terminal. Fire to the galley at 8. Then drink will be taken. The camaraderie was interrupted by the arrival of Duncan Hunter, a man who seemed to have a finger in every pie on the island. He looked windswept and opportunistic. Boy, Duncan, Jimmy called out, you coming to hand yourself in, or are you looking to sublet the cells and rent them out to tourists? Duncan grinned. Well, that's not a bad idea. No, I'm checking if you still need an engine for your boat. I think I might have found one for you. And will there be a finder's fee involved in this? Of course, Duncan said, spreading his hands. What am I? A charity. The banter was a shield against the cold reality of their work. But the shield shattered the moment Sandy Wilson walked in. Sandy was a young officer, usually eager and bright-eyed. But today, he looked as though he had seen a ghost. His face was the color of unbaked dough. T, excuse me, Sandy stammered. I'm sorry, Sandy. I didn't quite catch that. Jimmy said, his detective's instinct flaring. It's her grandmother's croft, Sandy whispered. I don't understand. She's been shot. Sandy's voice broke. Mima, she's dead. The silence that followed was absolute, heavier than the winter fog. Chapter 2. The Bresse Shore. The ferry to Bresse felt like it was moving through molasses, though the crossing was short. Jimmy stood at the railing, the spray stinging his face. Mima Wilson was an institution of quiet, formidable woman who had lived on the edge of the world for 80 years. The idea of